Hello, CO150. Good to see you again. I hope that you are all settling into a routine and looking forward to week 11 with me. Here we go. As usual, we will begin with our objectives. These again link back to the course syllabus. This week we're going to focus a lot on your resources and synthesis, how you're using them, how they all connect, why they're related to each other. A few quick notes. I am going to introduce this new slide. This was something that was requested from my CO300 classes, but essentially outlining what I want you to get from the homework to make sure that it's all clear and all working toward our next project. In your audience analysis, my goal with the first part is to make sure that you've got a firm grasp on who your audience is, audience being your stakeholder, a more specific definition rhetorically of who you're addressing, and how you intend to be able to identify with them, where you might find pushback, to decide how you can best achieve your purpose. This should help you identify what stake you have, being able to apply some of the values of your stakeholders and really address them most clearly in a way that's going to help you achieve your purpose, no matter what that purpose is, whether that's convincing an audience who's undecided to come to your side, or you might choose a group who is opposed to become less resistant, to be less antagonistic toward you, or you could encourage them to, that doesn't say anything, to encourage someone who already agrees with you to take a specific action. That also still doesn't say agree. I'll fix it later. Moving on. In the P3 outline that you're turning in for this week, that you turned in on Sunday, my goal is to make sure that you've got a plan for your research. You should be able to make these deliberate choices based on the argument structure that you chose and figure out how your sources work to support these different points, as well as how you plan to address the counterargument. Again, making sure that you're making strong choices for your argument, helping you plan rather than just kind of hoping that you're tapping the keys and that it's going to come out right. Instead, make a plan so that you can apply these different rhetorical concepts and build your ethos and logos. Now on to week 11 stuff. So far, the outlines give you a really strong idea, hopefully, of how to build your body paragraphs, but we haven't talked about the introduction and conclusion. The introduction, again, starts big and broad with this upside-down triangle, provides general information, maybe giving some background, and presents your thesis, clearly establishing, here's my goal, here's my audience, here's what I want to accomplish. The conclusion will do kind of the opposite, going back in reverse order. So, restating your thesis, kind of establishing my audience now understands these main points, restating those main ideas, and kind of building back out to find why that information is going to be important, even outside of CO150. Of course, you're writing this because you want a grade, but all of your issues are actually really important out there in real life, if you will. Why is that? This is one chance to make, to kind of contextualize and show the importance of that information outside of our classroom. One big thing, make sure that you're not addressing new ideas in the conclusion. This should be a place to rephrase, to recap, to remind your readers of what was important. If you find yourself writing new information, you might need to go back and write another body paragraph. Otherwise, make sure that you're just repeating ideas. Body paragraphs, we're going to use TREX structure. So some of you might be familiar with this, not the T-Rex from Jurassic Park, but more the topic sentence, rationale, evidence, and explanation. This is similar to our PI and TREX structures that we've talked about in the past, and you can use the student examples, the strong ones that I posted for you, to try and identify each of these pieces as we go. So let's look at each of these pieces more closely. The topic sentence is going to go back to the reasons. If you think about the Toolman structure or any of the different outlines that we talked about last week, the reasons all support the main points. This is where you're going to get your topic sentence. Each body paragraph should begin with a sentence, kind of like P1, saying, here's what this section is about, which is in your outline in the orange box. The rationale is going to give a little bit more information. This is something new that you'll need to develop. If you think about your stakeholder, this is a great place to address them specifically to show why they're connected to the issue. Each reason should help facilitate your argument, should connect to your audience to help support your claim. So this is a good place to kind of establish that why and how, to start some of that explanation showing why it's important, how it's related to the main ideas. To your main claim. Evidence, of course, is from our P2. You have 6 sources already, and that's so you should be able to use that information here. Each paragraph, if you notice in your outline, there are multiple pieces of evidence for each paragraph. At least 2 different sources should be cited in each paragraph to help with synthesis, which we'll talk about next. If you realize you've included 3 pieces of information from the same source, you might have some retweaking to do. So, when we talk about synthesis, this is kind of what I like to think about this with a metaphor, using the Avengers as the team. So, in this team of superheroes, we have the Hulk, who's super strong, super smashy, big, bold. We also have the Scarlet Witch, all kinds of magical, mystical power. We have long-range weaponry. We have, like, America's sweetheart. We have a god. We have royalty and, like, I don't know, a snarky teenager, but either way. All of them have different skills, all of them have different strengths, and they all come together in order to be the best team possible. This is very different from using one source repeatedly, from having just one strength. For instance, the Hulk is just strong, so he'll Hulk smash, and then he'll get really mad, and then he'll, like, Hulk smash some more, and then maybe you might have Steve Rogers to come in and try and settle that down. It's not as effective because you get so much of the same thing, you have so many of the same pieces that we lose that function of the team. Think about your sources like your team in order to demonstrate stronger synthesis. The explanation is the most important part of the paragraph. This is where you can bring your audience, again, answering the questions of why and how. Your information, the evidence is important, but your analysis to show why this matters is even more central to your argument. So, this is something that needs to be added as well. The outlines just kind of give you the bare bones, and then you can start to make these connections and show why these pieces are important. Another way that you might be able to synthesize in this project is by using multimodal elements. Multimodal elements include different genres, so we can bring in images, graphs, or charts that you found, different things to help support the argument. So, all of these do have a very specific form of in-text citation. We'll get to that next week or shortly, so just keep track of where this information comes from if you'd like to use multimodal elements so far. I'm realizing that 1, this is a long video, 2, as we work down your sources and try and kind of cull all the information that you have, multimodals will be less useful to us than your actual sources. So if you don't have any graphs, charts, images, things like that you're planning to use, skip ahead a couple minutes. We'll come back to that. The information is there if you need it, and we can talk more about multimodal citation as needed. This is where those memes come in that I had you find for week 9. So this is one of my favorite activities, so bear with me. I'm going to stick with it just to show you how much more diverse, how much richer your arguments can be with a few multimodals. So show me how funny you are. With all of these images, we have kind of common connotations with each of these different things. If you're a Lord of the Rings fan, if you know Futurama, we have a lot of different clear images that indicate what these mean. They give us more information than we would have from just text. Similarly, if you can't handle me at my worst, I don't blame you, that shit is ridiculous. This is kind of a contrast. This shows how image and words function together. We have the background that with the caption you see is from Instagram, so it looks like it should be this motivational, maybe kind of sappy or romantic kind of ideal, and then the words turned it on its head. It defies your expectations. So we have a little bit more explanation of why this is funny. For 2 points of extra credit, I'm going to ask you to email me a caption for this one. We have the Squidward reference, Squidward referencing SpongeBob, the caption originally that I found online. My brain after exams, or like, I don't know, after the whole country decides to go online for classes. You get the point. So, 2 points. Send me an email with your caption for this image. This is one of my favorites, and I do actually own this t-shirt. Again, an owl. This is one of my favorites, and I actually own this t-shirt. As an English teacher, it makes me feel more English teachery. But again, we see the image and words functioning together, and there's a very specific audience, grammar nerds, me as a teacher, that kind of thing. This one is one of my other favorites because I think it helps us understand audience and context more clearly. So, usually with each class, I've got 1 or 2 people who get it. We have the teacher who says, "Are there any classes you're struggling with?" The student says, "The bourgeois." The teacher says, "What?" The student says, "What?" If you notice, if you recognize that image, that is Karl Marx who says, "Nice." So we have the disparate images of the student in the class. So we have the humor of the working class, kind of, Karl Marx wrote the Communist Manifesto. We have the bourgeois as that upper echelon of French society that led in part to the revolution. So you have the wordplay with the teacher saying classes. He's talking about school classes, the students talking about socioeconomic classes. Karl Marx, this social theorist, comes in and kind of finishes it off. So if you think this is funny, you might be in the audience for it. So thinking about how multimodals could influence your project, I hope will give you a little bit more background on a few more ideas on how you might include these in your argument. Okay. If you want to synthesize more academically, there are some good resources for you. This resource from Ohio State helps outline some different kinds of information. So for here, you have the prompt about background information. Each of these give you a different place to start analyzing or identifying where you have that information. So if you have one paragraph about background information, you can cite multiple sources showing how all of those sources come together. Same thing for answering your research question and looking at other points of view. So this is an optional resource this semester since we're kind of short on time. Ultimately, when you use your sources, we have a lot of questions that we want to ask about them. So, for instance, making sure that you can cite them multiple times. If you have a source that you've just cited once, that's not really a responsible use of the research. It's not necessarily representative of that source. When we synthesize, we also want to make sure we can draw connections between them, making sure that some of your sources support each other, maybe they stand in contradiction to each other. We need to develop that relationship. That's part of the job of your analysis or your explanation. Last, making sure that we use strong author tags. This can build context. This can help show that relationship. For example, if we go back to our Avengers, Captain America, the first Avenger member and veteran, explains that. Now we know more background information. Now we know kind of implicitly we build that ethos and logos about why we trust this person, where this information comes from. So we start to understand how and why a little bit more when we give that extra context in an author tag. Which leads us to our homework. For the video question for your discussion post, tell me why 2 of your sources are related. Tell me how you're going to be able to synthesize 2 of your sources. Establish that connection. Tell me about that relationship, if they're complementary or contradictory. Again, 100 or 200 words there. Respond to the other prompts. Respond to your classmates by Friday. And in your Sunday assignments, you have a few different selections from your Allen and Bacon guide that you can choose from. Choose just one of these that you'll be able to use in that discussion as well, and start drafting. Excuse me, hiccups. Oh, some things never change. Okay. Also start drafting. Write your introduction and one reason. This is going to get you kind of through the first page or so of your draft. Oh man, hiccups are bad. And the second part of your audience analysis. This will take you to one stakeholder. You'll focus on just one of these groups and explore some more questions in depth about how and why they'll react to your information. Hopefully your audience analysis helps you draft your introduction and first reason as well. With that, make sure that you also answer the survey. I do really value your feedback. I'm sitting here on Saturday with just a few responses to that survey that you complete at the end of each week, so please remember to do so that I can continue to make this a better option for us. I'll also ask you to sign up for conferences. Check out the Week 12 video that will be posted soon, and the Week 12 assignments to figure out more about conferences. Thanks, everybody. Hope you're staying safe, and I'll see you next week.